sir.
Ji sir.
He's the only one from department who joins us on the every program of VOCA.
That's very positive on his part that he joins us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
He is ready to accept the criticism as well. No?
YouTube शुरू होगी तो कर दो please. Yes, sir. YouTube is already started.
फिर member अपना join करते रहेंगे, आप कर दो start.
Yes, yes. Most of the members are already there and a lot of members are joining us. We are starting the evening. Good evening, dear professionals. I am CA Neha Agarwal, welcoming you to the second day of our GST certificate course on behalf of Voice of CA and CA Association. Yesterday, we successfully covered GST assessment topic with our learned speaker, CA Siddhant Pathak. Today, in continuation, we have CA advocate Sandeep Goyalji with us, who is an inspiration to many. He is one of the leading lawyers in the country with a knack for taxation. He has been in practice since 20 years and has been regularly appearing before Honorable Supreme Court, Punjab and Haryana High Court and tax tribunals. He is also a chartered accountant and was on the merit list in 99. At present, he is managing partner at SGA Law Offices, which is one of the leading law firms in tax matters based in Chandigarh, having the right combination of experience and young vigor in providing turnkey solutions to their clients. He has also held the position of Additional Advocate General Punjab in 2012. Currently, he is standing counsel for Income Tax Department in High Court and also for FCI and Indian Oil. He has always played an important role in suggesting and advising various departments of Punjab government over tax issues. He has been vice chairman of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners North Zone in 12-13 and 14-15. He has been delivering lectures and seminars all his life on taxation and constitutional laws and have contributed articles in many journals. His core areas of practice are litigation, advisory, and tax management solutions in GST and VAT. We are very honored to have you on our platform today, sir. He would be deliberating on inspection, search, and seizure in GST today. That is the second topic of our course, which would include section 67 to 72 and rules 138 to 141. We would try to do as much justice as we can to the subject and would take as many questions as possible from the participants. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Neha-ji, for all your kind words. Just one thing I would like to add to whatever you have said, that probably my profile, which has been sent you, a little older. I have recently resigned from being the senior standing counsel for the department. Piyush knows it very well. So these days I am pitted against the revenue instead of for them. So that's one
Congrats, sir, for this.
Sorry, sir.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So much better for assessees.
Absolutely.
And ourselves also.
So it was actually that's
opposition.
So we start with today's topic. First of all, thank you very much to Voice of CA for having me here today. I've had the occasion earlier as well, and it was really an interactive session which I have had earlier. And Piyush ji and Ashwini ji had been the torchbearer for conducting all these webinars. In the course of that, they are now holding this 3-day certificate course also, and on a very, very relevant topics which we are facing these days in the GST regime. The subject which has been interested to me is not only very, very important and relevant, it is also something which is very close to my heart because I have done a lot of litigation in these issues. Though there are primarily, you have talked about the 4 or 5 sections in total. We talk about section 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72. Of course, 71 and 72 are not that too relevant. And if we score off section 68, which is a par during the course of movement of goods from one place to another, which is altogether different topic because that has to be read with section 129 and 130. So we are left with primarily 3 sections, 67, 69 and 70, which will cover the inspection, search, seizure, summons, and arrest. So though these are very few sections, but the scope of these sections is much, much wider, and the implications which are coming to the assessees or to the professional is also to a very large scale. So we start with section 67. I was told that we need to address all these sections in as much practical way as possible. So I would be sharing certain experiences of mine, certain case laws, certain case studies. And of course, we are not going to read out the sections like 67, it says this and that. But of course, to refresh everybody, we all know section 67 is the power to inspection and search. Section 67(1) deals with the power for inspection, and 67(2) deals with the power of search. There are two fundamental issues which we need to address and to discuss amongst ourselves is that normally and ordinarily, whenever the department has some intelligence or some information that a person is evading the tax, they ought to conduct the proceedings under section 67(1) by way of inspection. For that purpose, they can visit the business place of a person, they can visit the warehouse of a transporter or the warehouse keeper, and they can, of course, they can inspect those records, they can draw panchnama, and thereafter proceedings can be conducted. But unfortunately, what happens practically on the ground is, at least I have not seen many cases of section 67(1) inspection being carried out. What the people do, what the officers do, whenever they will come to your premises, they are carrying out one search permission under section 67(2) in the shape of INS 01. Now, if you have a look at that, that's a very formal thing, INS 01, which says that a joint commissioner or an officer senior to him has granted the permission to the lower officers, to the superintendents, to the intelligence officers, or to the state tax officers, or to the deputy excise taxation commissioner and all, that you go and search these premises. And the primary reason recorded by them is that this person is indulging in tax evasion. Whenever I have come across any search, in most of the cases, what this search primarily deals with is that your input tax credit is wrong. Your input tax credit which you have availed is fictitious. The person from whom you have made the purchases is fictitious. They are bogus. Now, to a certain extent, they may be right that the person is indulging in evasion of tax. But for that purpose, they should be carrying out an inspection under section 67(1) only and not a search under section 67(2). If we read section 67(2), it clearly provides that the search can be conducted on any place, which of course can be a place other than the business place also, only and only in case they have the information that a person is secreting certain document, things, or goods, which in the ordinary course cannot be retrieved. But unfortunately, such kind of satisfaction is neither recorded on the INS 01, which of course they would say that we are not required to. It is also not available in the backend file. So, in the absence of any satisfaction having been recorded about the fact that certain document, things, or goods have been secreted at a place, the search is carried out. Now, a question arises whether such a search conducted would meet the eyes of law and whether that would be legally valid or not. Very recently, we have come across a case delivered by Honorable Supreme Court of India. You can note it down. That's case of Union of India versus Magnum Steel, 2023, Volume 4, Syntax 106, Supreme Court. In that case, the Honorable Court had to deal with a case where the search had been conducted under the Customs Act. Now, under the Custom Act, the provisions are similar to what we have under Section 67 over here. that the person has to have, the joint commissioner or the person who is authorizing the search have to have reasons to believe. And those reasons to believe would be what? That any goods liable to confiscation or any documents or books or things which would be useful for or relevant to any proceeding under the Act are secreted and in place. Those reasons to believe were missing in that case. And if that is so, the entire search proceeding would be vitiated. That was a state appeal, the revenue appeal, which had traveled up to Honorable Supreme Court of India. While relying upon two earlier judgments of the Supreme Court, the court held that the High Court was justified in declaring the search as to be null and void, and therefore all the proceeding would also stand vitiated, and consequently the assessee had succeeded over there. Applying the principles of the same search over GST, of the same judgment on to the practical or the ground situation which is happening in GST, I don't see that any officer who is issuing INS 01 for carrying out the so-called search has any reasons to believe that any goods have been secreted, any things have been secreted, or any documents have been secreted at a place which according to whom would be useful or relevant for any proceedings under the Act. What they normally do, that we have some information about you that you are evading the tax. Therefore, we have come present at your premises. And since we have the powers under section 67(2), for which we have been authorized by through INS 01 by the senior officer, therefore we are carrying out this search. They don't have any information. What they do, they actually come and extract that information from your premises. They come and extract that information from your computer. They come and extract that information from your private area, private place of residence. Now, is that justified? According to my limited knowledge which I have, the proceedings of search are not to be carried out as a matter of routine. These have to be carried out in a very, very special circumstances, because it is a clear case of invasion of your right to privacy, which of course has been granted by Article 21 of the Constitution of India, and that has been recently recognized in many landmark judgments. Can such a constitutional right be invaded in a very, very casual way as the GST officers are doing these days? The answer would be no. They cannot do so. It has to be on the basis of very strong reasons to believe. For example, in a case, they have the information that a person who is carrying out the business has kept certain books of accounts at his premises, at his residence, which in case they carry out the inspection under section 67(1) would not be made available to him. In such a scenario, yes, 67(2) might be justified. There may be a situation where a person is carrying out the business and he is keeping certain goods which are at a place or the godown which is not disclosed to the department, but the department has the information that yes, you have that place where the goods have been kept, which of course are not properly accounted for. I assume that in that scenario, 67(2) would be justified. The search can be carried out, and thereafter those goods can be seized also. But it cannot be done in a manner that yes, you are evading tax, therefore 67(2) is justified. We are coming to your place. We have, on the basis of information which is readily available with you, we are making out a case of evasion of tax against you under section 73-74. Recently, I came across one case. In that case, a person had recently started the business, say from 1st of April 2023. The volume of his business was quite high. He had not even filed his return, which was to be filed in the next month, say 10th or 12th, whatever it is. The 3B was yet to be filed. GST 1 was yet to be filed. The officers came and searched the premises of that dealer on 26th of April. even before the month had ended, saying that we have seen that the scale of transactions which are being carried out by you is quite high, and the dealers from whom you are purchasing, their purchases are shady. Therefore, we are carrying out the search under section 67(2). Though they don't disclose all these things in a written manner. But if we apply the principles of section 67(2) on such facts, will that search be justified in any manner? They have not taken away any documents. Whatever documents were available, those are fully computerized. Everything is on record. Everything has been disclosed to the department. He has not filed the return. You cannot say even assume that tax is evaded, because he's yet to file the return. Whenever he'll file the return, you can carry out the proceedings of issuing the notice upon him. You have many tools to do that, but you can't carry out a search under section 67(2) for sure. So whenever any search is conducted, we as professionals have to look upon that with the parameters of section 67(2), whether those parameters are fulfilled or not. And if not, then we must take up that issue whenever we are litigating, that yes, 67(2) search is bad. Therefore, whatever proceedings have been conducted subsequent thereto would also be vitiated. Having said so, I have to also share a couple of judgments of Honorable Supreme Court with you. Those were the searches which were conducted. One was under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA, at that point of time. Another was a search conducted under the Income Tax Act. Now, in those cases, it was found that the search which has been conducted at the premises of the SSC was not justified, maybe because of the lack of authority, or maybe for any other reason, that the reasons you believe were not there. Now, the question arose that whether the evidence which has been collected during the course of such a search, which is illegal in the first place, can still be used by the department for carrying out further proceedings or for issuance of a notice for making assessment under the provisions of income tax and for the purpose of carrying out proceeding under FERA. The courts held it in favor of the department or the revenue that you can doubt the search conducted. You can say that search was illegal, but the evidence which has been collected during such a search cannot be brushed aside or cannot be ignored completely. And yes, the department can proceed with further proceeding based upon that evidence. But yes, there is a caveat to that. The caveat is this, that whatever evidence has been collected during the course of an illegal search has to be considered, has to be on a different pedestal, where all those documents have to be looked upon in a suspicious manner, whether that evidence is correct or not. So with that caveat, the courts have held that yes, this evidence can be used and further proceedings can be carried out. Second aspect which I wanted to discuss with you, which is quite rampant, is the forceful recovery of amount during the course of search. We have seen since 2017, the searches have been conducted, and during the course of search itself, the people are forced to either reverse the ITC through DRC03, or they are made to pay the amount through cash ledger by DRC03. And what is mentioned over there in DRC03, that this payment is being made under 74(5), or in some cases 73(5) also. And it is also mentioned that it is all voluntary. In all those matters, the cases had traveled to high courts. And the series of events would show that none of those payments were actually voluntary in nature. The reason is this, that a search is being carried out. The search is going on for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever. And at 12 o'clock, there is an entry of payment of tax. There is an entry at 3 o'clock in the morning for the payment of that tax, while the search is on. The courts presumed, which the department could not somehow repel, that if a person has to make the payment voluntarily, then that cannot happen, and that will not happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. That will not happen at 12 o'clock in the night. That will not happen at odd hours. And even if it has been paid during the daytime also while the search is going on, you cannot claim that this payment has been made voluntarily at all. Considering the overall circumstances, a series of judgments had been delivered by various honorable courts, including Gujarat High Court, Telangana High Court, and many other, where the courts have ordered the refund of the amounts which have been collected during the course of search. And why so? Once the search is over, once the proceeding under Section 67 are over, the department just sleeps over the matter after the investigation is complete, and they don't even issue the show cause notice to that person because their targets are met. We all know that DGGI and these anti-evasion people who come and search the premises, they have all been given the targets to achieve. And because of those targets, they force people to pay up the amount. The courts have ordered the payment of refund to all the assessees almost. And now very recently, the Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court also in couple of judgments in the case of Divakar Enterprises and another case of Modern Insecticide has come down very heavily on the department and said that you have conducted this search for almost 2 years back. And after the expiry of 2.5 years, you have not been able to issue even the show cause notice. So we don't assume that this payment has been made voluntarily at all. And if this payment was voluntarily made, then you should also take action by issuing them a clean sheet that yes, your payment has been made, so the matter is over. Unfortunately, that was not done. Therefore, the court have ordered the refund of amount in all those cases. We have also seen one case of Bhumi Associates, which was of course an interim order passed by Gujarat High Court. The court had given certain directions to the department to ponder over as to how such a voluntary payment should be made and what should be the procedure which is adopted. Based upon that, we had seen the circulars which have been issued by the CBIC, wherein such a practice of recovery of amount during the course of search had actually been commented upon. Certain guidelines were issued, though not exactly as the court would have presumed it, but yes, certain guidelines had come. But I'm sure you are also aware that such circular or such judgments are not being followed by the department at all. Unfortunately, 2 days back also, a search had been conducted. 7 days back also, a search had been conducted. And the assessee has been made to pay the amounts through DRC 03 and so-called voluntary payment under Section 74. And very interestingly, in the same DRC 03, they also mention, on the top it is mentioned that this is voluntary payment, and at the bottom in the remarks column, it is mentioned that this is the payment made under protest. Those cases have also come. So how can both the things be justified at the same fashion? The only thing which you can gather out of this is that the amount which has been recovered is not voluntary in nature at all. It has been forcefully recovered, and therefore, until and unless the show cause notice is issued, which is confirmed in the proceedings, the amount ought to be refunded because that money does not belong to the department till that time. Moving forward.
Sir, one thing I would like to ask, sir, if in any case we mentioned at DRC 03 on filing that this amount is we are depositing in protest. Can it be beneficial for the SECI at the time of filing, escalating the matter to the higher authorities or the even High Court?
Absolutely.
You can ask the department why they. That will be quite helpful for the SECI.
Absolutely. If you are mentioning in the remarks that the amount which has been paid is under protest and subject to the final adjudication of the matter, nobody can come and say that this payment has been made voluntarily. That will help you in two aspects, I will tell you. One, you can fight your GST case. Nobody can issue DRC 04 to you and close the proceedings. Secondly, one more aspect which probably sometimes we ignore, which I always keep in mind, is that in case you are making voluntary payment, you might be able to have a closure under the GST, because in certain cases, a person has purchased goods, say worth ₹1 crore. Department comes and say that your ITC to the tune of say 5 lakhs, because the item is 5% taxable. They say your 5% ITC is doubted. So therefore you kindly reverse it. People do reverse it. Let's put a closer to this, 5 lakh is paid, or DRC, through DRC, the ITC is reversed and the interest is also paid, 15% penalty is also paid. That would amount to about say 75,000, because they don't want to fight with the department. But see, the consequences of that voluntary payment is that you have almost accepted your guilt. Not almost, you have actually accepted your guilt. Under the Income Tax Act, the same amount, a crore of rupees is considered as to be a payment which has been treated as an accommodation entry, though that is another aspect whether they can do it or not. And under section 69C, the addition is made, which leads to the payment of the levy of tax under section 115 BBE. I've seen the cases where, for the sake of closure of the cases for say amount of rupees 5 lakh or 6 lakhs, the persons are being penalized or being asked to pay a crore of rupees with the interest penalty under the Income Tax Act. We are not looking at those aspects also. While advising our clients, we have to keep income tax and GST both into our mind. कई बार कह देते हैं वो लोग कि हम इनकम टैक्स वालों को नहीं बताएंगे, बट वो जीएसटी में अगर आपने मान लिया तो आजकल ऑटोमेटिकली वो सारी इश्यूज वो मैप हो रहे हैं. They have to issue the notice. So maybe that you are inviting now, they have 10 years to issue you the notice under section 147 also. So having considered that, we have to take all those considered decisions. Recently, I'll deal with one more case. I came across a case, a person was summoned under section 70. No search was conducted. He was summoned under section 70 and he was told that your 2 purchases are doubted and therefore you reverse the ITC on those 2 along with interest and penalty, and thereafter you are free to go. Now that person, who was doing quite a substantial business, he immediately rang up his accountant from the DGI place and asked him whether we have made these purchases at all or not, which they are asking me to reverse. So he said, yes, sir, we have made the purchases, these 2 purchases, because that was fun. That was on the computer that he could see in the ledger. The amount was not very significant, so he reversed that amount. He paid the penalty also, he paid the interest also. And he also asked for the closure on the spot, which was given to him. Now, when he came back, he found that one of the ITCs which they have doubted has actually been not taken by him in his books at all, because he had already returned those goods. He had already returned those goods and a credit note has been issued. So in such a situation, where is the question of any ITC reversal? Now he is in a problem that he can't seek refund of that money because there are no proceedings. There is no provision under the act that this amount has to be given back to him. But that amount does not belong to the department because ITC has not been taken at all. And he has been even asked to pay the interest and penalty on it. Now we have gone to the High Court, but again, we are facing the problem that it was all your thing which you have accepted and you have been issued the closure also.
But sir, surprisingly, if department can see the input taken, they were unable to see the credit note, debit note issued or uploaded.
जो आपके हक में है वो तो कभी भी वो देखते ही नहीं है सर. You know, I think everybody is entitled to commit mistakes. You, me, department, See, everybody can commit mistakes, but then there should be the remedy to rectify those mistakes. Will that not be violative of Article 300 capital A of the Constitution? We need to address that aspect as well. The money doesn't belong to the department. Will that be not violative of Article 265 of the Constitution? Because every law which we are having in this country has to be in consonance with the provisions of Constitution of India. No law can go beyond it. We all know that. And then another case, which is also very interesting. A person was caught hold of, his premises was searched. He was not a registered dealer. The department named him as to be a kingpin, that he was indulging in the issuance of tax invoices and all, but he himself was not the registered dealer. This is what the department is alleging. Now, there were 2 or 3 more people who were conniving with him or who were also doing the same business. But they were registered. Now, those 2 dealers who were conniving with him were the registered dealers. And what the departmental people did, they caught hold of them separately. And since there was no amount lying in the accounts of subsequent 2 people, say B and C, they asked A to pay the amounts which were from the account of A, and the DRC3 was filled for B and C. Amount is admittedly coming from the account of A, but the DRC3 of B and C is being filled up because A is not even registered, B and C are registered. How is that possible? I don't understand. That how can that be a voluntary payment of B or C? And how A can pay payment of B and C? And if the money eventually comes back, to whom it will come back? So हो क्या रहा है सर ग्राउंड लेवल पर, जो जहां से भी जो रिकवरी हो रही है वो करी जा रही है, धक्के से जोरा जैसे भी जोर से करा जा रहा है. So that those are all things that are happening. Moving forward, I'll come to section 69 arrest provisions a little later. Firstly, we'll deal with section 70. Just 2 subsections, very small provision of law, but having huge large scale implications. Can you move? Yes. So section 70 says the proper officer under this act shall have power to summon any person whose attendance he considers necessary, either to give evidence or to produce a document or any other thing in any inquiry in the same manner as provided in the case of a civil court under the provisions of the Code of CPC. Every single word in this subsection has a meaning. First of all, we need to find out whether any inquiry is being conducted by the officer or not. We need to distinguish between between inquiry and investigation. What we are given impression of is that investigation is being carried out. And investigation is not inquiry. Investigation is normally done by the police people, which is duly defined under this Criminal Procedure Code. When we talk about the inquiry, this is being done by the magistrate, or in this case, like an officer. These are the civil proceedings. These are not the criminal proceedings. We need to understand, even subsection 2 would vouch for that. So if these are the civil proceedings, can the department conduct these proceedings in a completely opaque manner? Can the statement be recorded as if it is being recorded under section 161 of the CRPC like a police station? The answer would be no. But is it happening, and is it being done by the department? It is being done in 100% cases. Whenever you go under section 70, firstly, they will not even entertain you properly. Then they will take you to a room. They will start investigating you at odd hours, as if you have done a huge crime. And then they will start pressurizing you with 5 people standing, forcing you to make these statements. चलिए वहां तक भी ठीक है, उन्होंने कर दिया. But when you ask for the copy of the statement, they say, no, this is all part of investigation. This will get when the time of show cause notice as an as RUD. At the moment, we can't give you the statement. Will that be supported by the provisions of CPC? I'm afraid no. If you ever had the occasion to attend some civil proceedings in a civil court, the moment the statement is started, you can always apply for the copy of the same even before the statement is recorded. And at the end of the statement, at the end of the witness, once your signatures are taken, it is recorded in the court. The copies of the same is given to you immediately. But do we see that in the GST? Unfortunately, no. The department is not conducting those proceedings as provided in a case of a civil court under the provisions of CPC. So they themselves are violating the provisions of law. They are conducting the proceeding under section 70, which is meant for carrying out the inquiry in the manner as if the investigation is being carried out. Second, very interesting aspect. Now, section 70 says that a proper officer under this act shall have the power to summon any person whose attendance he considers necessary, either to give evidence or to produce a document. The question arises, are you entitled to appear in section 70 summon through an authorized person? Can you send your chartered accountant or consultant or an advocate to attend those proceedings on your behalf? Those matters are pending before the various courts. And subject to the interpretation which is to be given by the honorable courts, I must say that this is something which is still a gray area. The reason for the same I will share with you, that it is clearly provided under the Act wherever the person's attendance is required to be there, he has to appear in person. The Act says whenever he has to appear and give his statement on oath, only in those circumstances is required to appear in person. For everything else, the authorized person is entitled to appear under section 116. And wherever they wanted them to appear in person, they have to give the statement on oath. There are only a couple of provisions which are there under the Act in which you have to appear. One is the provisions relating to, I think, appeal, and another is a provision which relates to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, where the person can be summoned to give his statement on oath. For everything else, the person can appear through his authorized representative also. But having said so, the person who has been summoned normally appears. Now, what are the rights of that person when he appears before the proper officer? That is again another aspect which we need to dilate upon. Sometimes people come to me and ask whether the advocate or the chartered accountant accompany the person who has been summoned. The straightforward answer would be no. But still, if you go and make a request to the officer, he can allow the presence of the chartered accountant or the advocate at a visible distance, but at a distance which is not audible. This is the law. But normally the officers don't allow this also. one of the attendees has also stated that it is at the mercy of the officer. Yes, you are at the mercy of the officer, but in case you want such kind of relief, you have to approach the Constitutional Court under 226. And if you are approaching the Constitutional Courts, the High Courts under 226, 227, in certain cases, the courts have granted such a right to the assessee to appear through for the presence of the lawyer or the chartered accountant. And in certain cases, they have not given such a favor to the assessee. So it is again hit and trial method where you can approach the court and can get the presence of your lawyer or the advocate or the chartered accountant. But if they are present, then it does make a difference. One, that person is not harassed. Secondly, in case of any legal issues, he can be consulted by the officer also. A couple of cases have happened where a person, the MD of a company, a listed company, has been summoned. And what he is being asked about, the classification issue. Now that managing director of the company says कि भैया जो क्लासिफिकेशन की आप बात कर रहे हो कि ये आइटम 5% में फॉल करेगी या 12 में करेगी या 18 में करेगी या एग्जेम्प्ट में फॉल करेगी, that is something which can be answered by my professional advocates, professional lawyers, chartered accountants. I'm not a competent person. मैं तो भैया 12वीं पास हूं, मेरे को नहीं पता कि आइटम क्या है. I'm not technically equipped, because that is something which needs to be elaborated upon, because the department was relying upon the harmonized system of nomenclature, the explanatory notes of that, which is part of the word custom organization. So if you are relying upon such a document which is not even in the public domain or the internet, you are expecting a person under section 70 to come and tell you that this item would fall under item A or in entry A or entry B. All said and done, section 70 is being used more for the purpose of harassment than for the purpose of making the actual investigation or in the inquiry as provided under the law. So that misuse has to be curtailed. That misuse needs to be addressed by the courts. That section 70 is not the medicine for all the ailments for the department. DGI is issuing the section 70 summon, तो बंदे को वैसे ही बुखार आ जाता है कि DGI का section 70 का सम्मन आ गया, पता नहीं मेरे साथ क्या होने वाला है. तो हमें उस टेररिज्म को, उस टेरर को रिमूव करना है, और वो उसके लिए हम लोगों की जो पार्टिसिपेशन है, जो प्रोफेशनल्स की पार्टिसिपेशन है, दैट बिकम्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अब जो मैंने आपसे क्लासिफिकेशन की बात करी है, अब उसमें जो MD था, बिकॉज द अमाउंट इन्वॉल्व वाज quite high, I mean running into maybe 20-30 crore. Now he was repeatedly threatened कि अगर आप पेमेंट नहीं करवाओगे तो हम आपको अरेस्ट कर लेंगे. तो अब एक आम आदमी को या एक जो बिजनेसमैन है उसको नहीं पता होता कि अरेस्ट के क्या प्रोविजंस हैं और कब अरेस्ट हो सकता है. उन्हें तो अखबारों में पढ़ा हुआ है कि 5 करोड़ रुपए से ऊपर अमाउंट इन्वॉल्व है तो आपको अरेस्ट हो सकती है. Now that person came to me when I had a one-to-one discussion with him. I told him, and I actually handed over the copy of act to him. Okay, section 132 allows the arrest only in 4 circumstances. 1, where you have clandestinely removed the goods, where you have issued you have sold the goods without issuance of any tax invoice. 2, where you have received the goods without tax invoice. 3rd, where you have not sold the goods, or you have not sold the goods, but you have issued only the invoices. Then where you have availed the ITC without getting the goods. And 4th would be where you have collected the tax but have failed to pay the government beyond a period of 3 months. इन 4 केसेस के बगैर आप किसी भी केस में अरेस्ट नहीं कर सकते हो, बिकॉज ऑल अदर ऑफेंसेस आर बेलेबल ऑफेंसेस। और इस चारों में भी अगर आपकी अमाउंट जो है वो 5 करोड़ से नीचे है, देन इट बिकम्स बेलेबल ऑफेंस। सो देयरफॉर वी नीड टू take away that fear in the minds of assessees, which is unfortunately being inflicted upon them by the departmental authorities, and more so by way of these all newspaper articles which we read every day कि उसके घर रेड हुई, उसके ऊपर 100 करोड़ मिल गया, उसके ऊपर 500 करोड़ मिला, उसके ऊपर 1000 करोड़ का बना है। कई बार तो जो केसेस आप हैंडल कर रहे होते हो उसके बारे में न्यूज पढ़ते हो, you actually laugh on those claims which are made by the department. जब इन्वेस्टिगेशन होती है, जब शो कॉज नोटिस इशू होता है, और जब उसके बाद एक्चुअल उसकी एडजुडिकेशन होती है और अपील्स में जाता है, तो वो कहते हैं ना, खोदा पहाड़ निकली चुई, मेकिंग अ माउंटेन आउट ऑफ मोल हिल। And let me tell you, 90% of the cases which are carried out by the DGI fail at the level of tribunal. Earlier it used to be DGCI, the Central Excise Intelligence. Though all those cases fail before the higher authorities because they don't go by the procedure. They don't allow the assessees to defend their cases in a very fair manner. They go over the board. The only idea is, at that point of time, is to collect the money. Going further, we now need to discuss section 69, the provisions of arrest. As I've already discussed with you, section 69 is applicable where the person has reason to believe that a person has committed any offense specified in clause A, B, C, and D of section 132(1), which is punishable under clause 1 or 2 of subsection 1 or subsection 2 of the said section. He may by order authorize any officer of central tax to arrest such person. वो जो 4 आइटम्स जो हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, जो 4 situations हैं A, B, C, D, वो है when a person has supplied any goods. I have already discussed that with you. Issues any invoice without supply of goods, avails ITC without invoice or bill, and collects any tax. Besides that, there are many other clauses. If you can, Akriti, if you can just run through that. E, evades the tax or fraudulently obtains refund, and where such offense is not covered under clause A to D. F, falsifies or substitute financial records or produces fake accounts. H, acquires possession of or in any way concerns himself in transporting. I, receives or in any way concerned with the supply of so and so. Attempts to commit or abets the commission of any of the offenses shall be punishable. So, 4 offenses, गुड्स बिना बिल के बेचने के लिए, और गलत आईटीसी लेने के लिए, गलत आईटीसी देने पे, और टैक्स नहीं जमा करवाने के सिवाय और किसी केस में अरेस्ट नहीं हो सकती। तो ये 4 चीजें हमारी टिप्स पे होनी चाहिए। और इसमें भी अगर अमाउंट 5 करोड़ से नीचे है तो वो अरेस्ट नहीं हो सकती। इट विल बिकम अ बेलेबल ऑफेंस। बेलेबल कई बार क्या है, मैंने कुछ क्लाइंट्स मेरे पास आते हैं कि वो दिखाते हैं कि हमारे पास तो 2 करोड़ रुपए से ऊपर अरेस्ट की पावर है तो हम अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं। अब उसको ये नहीं बताते कि अगर 2 करोड़ पे अरेस्ट करेंगे तो हम आपको उसी में इमीडिएटली बेल भी देनी पड़ेगी। वो ये नहीं बताते उसको कहते हैं अरेस्ट की पावर है, वो दिखा देते हैं कि ये अरेस्ट की पावर है। अब ये जो फियर है, ये दिस इज बीइंग यूज्ड फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ एक्सटॉर्टिंग दोस so-called voluntary payments of tax in DRC 03. Yes, arrests have been made correctly. In most of the cases, the arrests have been made correctly. But आप उसका fallback option, fallback एक situation देखिए. While they are arresting the people for the correct reason, for the right reasons, these arrests are being used by them for other people to instilling fear in their minds, to force them to make payment, and to induce them to record voluntary statements which are used against them in the evidence on the later proceedings. So unless and until this power to arrest is checked, I believe there will be no fair procedure available to the assessees as we used to have in the earlier regimes where the arrest was not there. So the arrest is being used as a tool to create problems. There are very few important judgments on this aspect of arrest, which I'll definitely like to discuss with you. The first in the line was the case of P.V. Ramanna Reddy. I've faced that judgment many times, so I've read it over and over again. That came from Telangana High Court. An argument was raised in P.V. Ramanna Reddy that a person cannot be arrested until and unless his assessment is framed and it is found that he has actually evaded the tax or he has availed the ITC in excess of 5 crores of rupees or more. And it was also argued that the provisions of Section 69 are draconian in nature and therefore arrest should not be allowed to be made in such cases. The court rejected that argument and said that it is not necessary for prior assessment before the provisions of Section 69 are invoked and a person is arrested. It is not necessary that the assessment is to be framed beforehand. Then there was a contrary judgment which came from Honorable Madras High Court in the case of Jaya Chandran Alloys, which held it otherwise and observed that until and unless the assessment is framed, a person cannot be arrested. And while doing so, the Madras High Court had relied upon one division bench judgment of Delhi High Court in the case of Make My Trip versus Union of India. In the case of Make My Trip versus Union of India, that was a case which came out of service tax regime under Finance Act 1994. There was a provision for arrest in case a person has not deposited the tax which he has collected. And the senior officer of Make My Trip was arrested on the ground that you have collected the tax, but you have not deposited with the department. Of course, the limits were there, 50 lakhs plus, and those things were there. Though they were arrested and they had approached the Honorable Delhi High Court, the High Court said that these provisions have to be read along with the assessment proceedings. Here you are alleging that a person has committed an offense for which the threshold itself is 50 lakhs. How and in what manner you arrived at that figure? That's possible only in case you have carried out an assessment, you have carried out certain proceedings by virtue of which you have come to that amount of 50 lakhs. For which you have not even issued the show cause notice as of today. And if you have not even issued the show cause notice, the question of determination thereof, of course, does not arise. The court went on to declare the arrest illegal under Section 60 at that point of time under the Finance Act 1994, saying that arresting a person without adjudication would amount to putting the cart ahead of the horse. The matter traveled up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court initially granted the stay on that judgment. But later on in the year 2019, by passing 3-line order, the court said in appeal, I'll tell you the difference between the appeal and the SLP also. The court in an appeal said, we totally agree with the reasoning given by the High Court and therefore dismiss the appeal filed by the state, by the Union of India. Now, once that judgment has been given by the Honorable Supreme Court in an appeal, it amounts to the merger of order passed by the Delhi High Court and would be a binding law over the entire country. That will be binding under Article 141 of the Constitution. Now, if that is binding on all the authorities, I don't see much of the difference between GST law and service tax insofar as this proposition of law is concerned. That arresting a person before assessment would amount to putting the cart ahead of the horse. आप कहते हो कि 5 करोड़ रुपए से ऊपर की एवेजन है, भैया कहाँ डिटर्मिनेशन कहाँ पर है उसकी? कोई शो कॉज है उसका, उसकी कोई डिटर्मिनेशन है, उसका कोई आपने ऑर्डर पास करा है? नथिंग. They just allege that your evasion is more than 5 crore, therefore we are arresting you. If we see the implications of Supreme Court judgment of Make My Trip, according to me, as of today, as the law stands, no arrest can be made without adjudication. The judgment of P.V. Ramanna Reddy was delivered before the Supreme Court had affirmed the Delhi High Court, and therefore would not be considered to be a binding law according to me. In any case, Telangana is not applicable across the country. That would be binding only within its jurisdictional framework. Some people say that P.V. Ramanna Reddy has been upheld by the Supreme Court in SLP. We need to understand the difference between dismissal of an appeal and dismissal of an SLP. Where the Supreme Court is dismissing the SLP in limine, meaning thereby there is no adjudication, there is no admission of that aspect, or the matter has not been considered by the Supreme Court worthy of its admission, would not become a binding law. That is not binding in nature. That will not be considered as to be Supreme Court judgment. That's what the Supreme Court judgment of Kunya Muhammad says. But in case the leave has been granted, the SLP has been admitted, and thereafter, even by 2-line order, the appeal is dismissed, it becomes the binding law because it is a merger of the High Court order. So drawing the line between Make My Trip and P.V. Ramanna Reddy, we can say that Make My Trip is a law where which says that arrest cannot take place before the adjudication is made. One more aspect of arrest I would definitely like to discuss it at this forum is the case of Akhil Krishan Maggu, which came from my own High Court, the Honorable Punjab Haryana High Court, where a lawyer who was associated with the inquiry, with the assessee's proceeding, was sought to be arrested, and that person had approached, the lawyer had approached the High Court that the respondents be restrained from arresting me. The court had opined that the professionals should not be arrested in a casual manner until and unless they are actually part of the evasion which has taken place, and they are the beneficiary for that. Unfortunately, we have seen many cases very recently where the chartered accountants and the tax professionals have been arrested merely because they were doing their professional duties, because the provision is such draconian that बंदे को खुंदक आ गई, ऑफिसर को खुंदक आ गई, तो उसने उसको पकड़ लिया. अभी हमने देखा था फरीदाबाद, गुड़गांव के अंदर दो एडवोकेट्स को, दो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स को जो अरेस्ट करा था लास्ट ईयर, where they had simply certified the application that there is no unjust enrichment in RFD 01. One statement had been signed, and they were somehow made to pay for that. I mean, they had to spend about 4 or 5 months in the jail, which according to me was totally uncalled for. There was no role of those professionals. In Akhil Krishan Maggu, the court has laid down certain guidelines that the person cannot be arrested, the tax professional cannot be arrested in the normal course, the chartered accountant or the advocate. But again, these judgments have the theoretical value these days. Nobody is following that unless you go and get those enforced from the higher courts. But while we are dealing with it, we must be aware of all those judgments which we can quote before the court. अरेस्ट से रिलेटेड एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है, which I would say that we all should be aware of. Unfortunately, the GST officers are not aware of that. वो क्या है? There's a judgment given by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar. The judgment of Arnesh Kumar says that a person is not to be arrested merely because you allege that the person has committed the crime. For all those cases where the punishment is less than 7 years, in GST, the maximum punishment is 5 years. In all those cases where the punishment is less than 7 years, a person is not to be arrested unless certain conditions are fulfilled. And what are those conditions? That person is likely to influence the witnesses, the person is likely to run away from the country, the person is likely to destroy the evidence, the person is to be prevented from committing further crime, the person is likely to be indulging into wrongful activities and all those. But you cannot arrest him merely because you say that he has committed the crime for which the trial will take place, and thereafter, if at all he is to be convicted, he will be taken to the jail. Unfortunately, this judgment of Arnesh Kumar was not followed not only by our GST officers, but across the country, even by all the police officers. The court had said in Arnesh Kumar itself that in case somebody is violating the judgment of Arnesh Kumar, then that officer would be liable for contempt of court. And a judicial magistrate who is granting the remand of that person is also obliged to look into the aspect whether the arrest has been made legally or illegally, whether that fulfills the requirements of Arnesh Kumar or not. And in case he doesn't do that, disciplinary action would also be taken against that judicial officer. Just imagine, after such a drastic order by the Honorable Supreme Court, still the police officers and judicial officers were not following it in the letter and spirit. Consequently, recently the Supreme Court had to again reiterate its earlier stand in the case of Stinder Kumar Antil. That has happened in 2021. That was 21, 22? 21. 2021, the Honorable Supreme Court had again come down very heavily on all the police officers, saying that the guidelines given in Arnesh Kumar have to be followed without any reservation at all. A person is not to be arrested only because, according to you, he has committed the crime until and unless other conditions are also fulfilled. Those were still not being followed, and thereafter the Supreme Court has again had to pass an order where it had sent judicial officers of the rank of additional district judge for training to the judicial academy, and the entire judicial work had been withdrawn from them because they had not followed the guidelines given in the Arnesh Kumar. In certain cases, the high courts in the country have actually issued the contempt notice to the officer and have also sentenced them, have also convicted them for contempt of court for violating the provisions of Arnesh Kumar. Very recently, our office did a matter where a person who had been issued a summon for appearance before him for 5th of April was unfortunately arrested on 27th of March. They came to his premises and said, since you have evaded the tax worth more than rupees 5 crores, therefore we are arresting you. The officer did not have any guidelines of Arnesh Kumar in his mind. He simply said, I have the authorization. This is the authorization given to me by the commissioner. That was a state officer. And according to it, you have committed the crime. You have violated the law. You have evaded the tax of 5 crore. Therefore, I am arresting you. The arrest memo was handed over to his wife. He was taken to the local police station from where he was produced before the magistrate next date. Now, before the magistrate, an application had been filed by the department where our office took an objection that in view of the guidelines of Arnesh Kumar, this person cannot be sent in a judicial remand at all. The court said, all right, you file a bail application, we'll grant judicial remand for 14 days. They are not asking for police remand. You file an application for bail, we'll consider all those things. But we objected to the sending of that person in judicial remand itself and filed our objections in writing over there, reiterating the guidelines of the Supreme Court and supporting it with the judgments. And let me tell you, we were successful in our attempt, and the Honorable Court itself on the second day observed that once you have already issued the summon to him for 5th of April, there was no justification for you to arrest him on 27th, and you have not followed the guidelines of Arnesh Kumar in this case. Therefore, the application for judicial remand itself had been rejected and the person was set free without filing the bail application. Of course, we had shown those judgments of Supreme Court where the officers had been sent to Judicial Academy for training. You know, I believe that would be one of the very unique cases where the person has not been even sent to the judicial remand in a GST case, and he has been allowed to be set free on the second day. And when the court asked the officer, have you followed the guidelines of Arnesh Kumar? The answer was, sir, ye Arnesh Kumar kya hai? The answer was, sir, Arnesh Kumar hai kya? Because they don't know it. They have the powers to arrest, but they don't know the duties which are there behind it. So therefore, what I'm saying that section 69, the arrest power, section 132, which is being invoked, we are all beating around the bush. Reasons of arrest are very draconian in nature, violative of Article 21 in most of the cases, have to be used in a very, very skeptical manner, not to be used as a matter of course. Unfortunately being used, but we as professionals can always guide our clients on all those issues. So with this, I would be rather stop speaking because would like to have questions from people who are already there and answer those. I want to have an interactive session with them so that I can also learn from them, from their questions. So I would request Neha ji to please take over and please take us through.
Q&A में भी विजय सर की क्वेश्चन है वो ले ले 67 से रिलेटेड है.
हाँ जी. Shafi, would you like to take up the questions along with sir?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll do that. So we're starting from Vijay Kumar. So the question is, search under section 67(2) may follow inspection under section 67(1), or it may be an independent proceeding directly initiated.
Section 67(2) can, Vijayji, 67(2) can be directly invoked. There is no doubt about it. But then 67(2) provisions are stringent in nature. Those have to be used only in the cases where you have the the reasons to believe that a person has secreted certain document things or the goods. Only then section 67(2) can be invoked. Of course, 67(1) is not required wherever there is an information with the department. It can be straightway invoked.
Right. I hope he got the answer. Sir का ये एक और सवाल है कि whether the search can be carried by SGST officer when the taxpayer is allotted to CGST department.
Vijay, I think your question is very pertinent and it is a very large issue with regard to the cross empowerment, and 62B is also there. The question would arise whether a person who has been allocated to the CGST department can a search.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. This question is very important in today's fake registration drive also. because
Correct.
many assesses which are registered under CGST cell, can they be inspected by the local SGST officers?
I'm answering that. I'm answering that. Sir, this is what I'm saying. It's a larger issue where the question of section 6(2)(b) comes into picture, and certain circulars have been issued by the department where they say intelligence-based action can be taken by the SGST officer and CGST officers both. This is the circular which was issued way back in October 2017, I believe. See, I have clear challenge to such like proceedings before the courts. And the argument which is raised by us is that a person who has been allotted or allocated certain jurisdiction, maybe the CGST or SGST, primarily he's like his baby, that particular department's baby. Now you want to say that intelligence-based information can be taken. Section 6 itself permits the SGST officer to take action under the CGST Act, right? Or vice versa, under the SGST Act, the power is there. But then it says subject to the conditions which shall be prescribed by the GST Council in this regard, or the government. If you go back to the GST Council meetings in this regard, you would recollect there was no consensus with regard to cross-empowerment right from the beginning. And then the problem of refund had arisen in the months of September 17, where people were saying, since the cross-empowerment issue has not been resolved, so at least grant them the cross-empowerment for grant of refund. Then we had seen 3 notifications which were issued by the government. Those were all under section 54 of the CGST Act and section 20 of the IGST Act and section 54 of the state GST Act, where the cross-empower the other officers, like under the SGST, CGST officer were cross-empowered, and under the CGST, the state GST officer were cross-empowered. If you dig deep into those council meetings, there were proposals for issuance of other notifications also. But GST Council did not agree with those, and there was no consensus over that, and those notifications were dropped, where they wanted to cross-empower the CGST officer and SGST officer and vice versa on other aspects as well. But those notifications have not seen the light of the day. So our argument before the courts is that until and unless those notifications are issued, the officers are not cross-empowered to carry out the proceedings. So, जो विजय जी का question है, that's very relevant, and this plea is available to us that if an officer has been allocated or to a CGST department, then his search cannot be carried out by the SGST officers because of the lack of notifications to be issued under section 6. Right, sir?
All right. So, sir, I have read somewhere like reoccurring show cause notice should be issued by jurisdictional authorities. अगर original issue करा भी है किसी और authority ने, तो reoccurring जो है वो सिर्फ jurisdictional authorities ही कर सकती हैं. So, what that means, reoccurring show cause notices?
Those are the notices which are required to be issued for the subsequent period. Recurring notices are on the same issue. Suppose a particular officer or the cross-empowered officer, as they assume themselves to be, has carried out certain investigation or has carried out certain proceedings, and they have come to a conclusion. And thereafter, subsequent, the notices are to be issued by this jurisdictional officer only and not by this other officer who has carried out the investigation. So, like in the cases of DGGI, the DGA is not going to carry out the proceedings again and again because they have finished their investigation and they have come to a conclusion about certain issue, and subsequent notices can now be issued by the jurisdictional officer also. So that's the idea.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So let's take the next question. Nishant Kumar, whether non-filing of return be deemed as evasion of tax and search be conducted?
Well, Nishanji, first of all, the evasion of tax, I have already discussed with you that search cannot be conducted merely because there is an evasion of tax. For that, the inspection has to be carried out. Non-filing of return cannot be deemed as evasion of tax at all. The reasons to believe must show much more than that. In case you have not filed the return, they have the simple way of sending you the notice. In case you don't file the notice, they can cancel your registration certificate. And in case you are still not filing the return or not doing anything, they can always frame your assessment as a non-filer of return. That cannot be deemed to be a case of evasion of tax, and such cannot be carried out merely on that basis. That's for sure. Unless, of course, they have some more material to add to that.
Great. Right, sir. So the next question is whether the assessee is entitled to a copy of reasons recorded for issuing a search warrant.
No. The answer would be no. But the person can go and challenge that before the High Court, saying that the search has been not conducted with the proper reasons to believe, and the court is entitled to go into those aspects. Of course, that original file has to be shown to the court by the officers.
All right, all right. So the next one is whether the non-compliance of provision of section 68 read with rule 138 attracts section 129. If it is so, whether the penalty under section 129 is in addition to general penalty under section 122.
Well, the non-compliance of provisions of section 68 would definitely attract the provisions of section 129 for sure. There is no doubt about it. 122, which is a general penalty, would not be attracted in such a case where this specific penalty has been imposed. So I think what Mr. Vijay Kumar wants to say is that similar penalty has been provided under 122 and 129. So in that case, when there is a specific provision for the imposition of penalty, then that provision has to be invoked, and 122 is not attracted at all.
So it overrides 122.
Of course.
Right. So the next is relevant for all the CAs. Can the GST officer arrest a CA?
Well, a GST officer, of course, can arrest a CA. My answer would be yes, but with lots and lots of riders with that.
ये तो कर ही दिया सर उन्होंने ना.
A chartered accountant, sir.
कैन वाली चीज तो कैन वाली सिचुएशन तो खत्म ही कर दी ना उन्होंने सर. They are arresting rather.
ये ऐसे ये जो कैन की सिचुएशन आती है ना, वो हम लोग टेकअप करते हैं कोर्ट्स में. मैं एक पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस आपसे शेयर करना चाहता हूँ. When I had started doing law, so one of the constitution laws teacher had asked the entire class that you are all aware of fundamental rights. You always say that मेरे को ये right है, मेरे को वो right है, article 14, 15, 16 सारे आप लोगों ने रट रखे हैं. मेरे को right of freedom है, मेरे को right of speech है, मेरे को right of trade है, ये है वो है, सारा कुछ करते हो. But do you know the origin of right? From where the right accrues to you? It is not because it is mentioned in the book. The right accrues to a person with a corresponding duty on the person who recognizes those rights.
Correct.
Understand? So, अगर वो कह रहे हैं कि आपको एक freedom है कि आप you can go on a road, but somebody stops you and slaps you on the way, तो आपका right कहाँ गया? वो छू मंतर हो गया. आपका कोई right नहीं है. आप भाग के वापिस आ जाओगे. What you can do, you can only go and seek the remedy of that. तो फंडामेंटल राइट वो जो है आपके बुक्स के लिए तो ठीक है, बट जब तक कोई रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करता उन राइट्स को, देयर आर नो राइट्स. सो आंसर टू योर क्वेश्चन इज दैट सीए को अरेस्ट कर सकते हैं. वो आप कह रहे हो कि सकते वाली बात तो अब खत्म होगी, कैन और कैन नॉट. जब हम इनकी बात करते हैं वेदर दे कैन अरेस्ट और नॉट, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट व्हाट देयर इज इन लॉ, नॉट प्रैक्टिकली. So yes, जो क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछा द सीए कैन बी अरेस्टेड, आई सेड yes, but with lot of riders. One, a CA cannot be arrested while he's doing or discharging his duties in the course of his professional work, so long as he's not conniving with that person. Secondly, the chartered accountant cannot be arrested unless and until there are allegations that he has manipulated certain documents. Because in case he is accused of manipulating or creating certain documents, then not only the GST officer can arrest him, the provisions of section 467 and 468 of the IPC would also be impacted in such a situation for manipulation of record and for creating the evidence. Then thirdly, a chartered accountant cannot be arrested unless and until he's a beneficiary of that. Like the cases which we have seen in the Gurgaon, the two chartered accountants who were arrested. One of those chartered accountants was neither the beneficiary nor he had actually committed. He had not connived with the clients at all, but still was arrested only for the reason that the refund application contains a statement on which his signatures are there, which certified that the person has not been unduly enriched. That was the only crime according to them he has committed. उस वजह से सर एक चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट का अरेस्ट नहीं कर सकते हो. आपने जो काम करा है एज अ प्रोफेशनल करा है, sometimes you may say yes, you have committed some mistake, but you cannot be arrested for that purpose at all, at least not under section 132 read with section 69. GST officer तो आपको बिल्कुल भी अरेस्ट नहीं कर सकते. अगर आपको कुछ गलत करा है, for that you have to file an FIR and the police will investigate that case. 132 में तो मैंने आपको अभी भी शेयर करा है कि there are only 4 things for which you can be arrested. That is in case बिल्स आपने नहीं इशू करे हैं, दूसरा आईटीसी गलत लिया, आईटीसी गलत दिया, टैक्स नहीं पे करा. आपके ऊपर ज्यादा से ज्यादा एलिगेशन अबेटमेंट का हो सकता है, फॉर विच यू कैनॉट बी अरेस्टेड. तो अगर आप उन 4 क्लॉजेस में फॉल नहीं करते हो, आपको अरेस्ट नहीं किया जा सकता. एंड यू शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ ऑल योर राइट्स. 132 की जो प्रोविजंस है वो हमारे रटे होने चाहिए, 1 2 3 4. जी.
Right. I think with the power comes the responsibility, but I'm sure power is being misused right now.
जब तक पावर का मिसयूज ना करो तो पावर का मजा ही नहीं आता.
Right, it's India. Anyway, so let's move on to next question. My client is in the business of restaurant, Zomato, Swiggy sales. Their returns pending from the beginning, but in their registration, hotel HSN is given. Is there any issue if returns file now or if department open their case?
My client is in the business of restaurant. Well, अगर आप अपनी रिटर्न्स फाइल कर रहे हो तो डेफिनेटली यू आर सेइंग दैट आप बैल मुझे मार, यू आर इनवाइटिंग द ट्रबल. आपने HSN कोड में होटल लिख रखा है तो शायद इस वजह से वो नहीं कर रहे हैं. But the moment you will file the return, yes, you will face the heat. वो तो अगर आप नहीं भी करो तब भी कभी ना कभी तो उनको पता चलेगा. But you can keep your fingers crossed for the limitation to expire.
Right. So we have the last question. In case of inspection, Ashoka's notice has been issued. Can the penalty be imposed under section 122 or 125 of GST Act, or through section 174 at the rate of 15, 25, 100% as the case may be?
Well, it depends. In case the inspection has been carried out and the SC has been issued for evasion of tax, then of course the proceedings will be conducted under section 74 and a corresponding penalty of 15, 25 and 100% under that section. But in case the inspection has been carried out and they find that no tax is due, then that circular of 171 would come into picture. And then in that case, only and only the notice can be issued under section 122 and not under section 74.
Sir, we also have 2 questions in the chat box, and then we can have Atul sir also ask his question. His hand is raised. Sarabjit ji asks, sir, what is the period for limitation for issue of SCN post inspection or search?
Well, limitation period would be governed under section 73 and 74. In case it's a case of 73, the last date for 17-18 would be expiring in September 2023. Normally it is the 3 years period which is there from the filing of your annual return. And of course, the notice has to be issued 3 months prior to that. And for 5 years, it is 6 months prior to the 5-year expiry, and 5 years is the period for the carrying out the proceedings. That's the end of the proceedings, the conclusion of proceedings. So that limitation is governed under 73 and 74 section only.
Okay, moving on. Bhavna ji asks, inspection was carried out in our premises as while doing audit of our GST refund. They found some HSN related issues, but when they inspect, they found a big mistake in our GSTR 9 of 1718 and forced us to file DRC 03 for 36 lakh plus interest plus penalty. But we asked them to issue notice. Now they're regularly auditing our refunds and previous records to find anything strong basis so that they can issue show cause. They are forcing us to provide written reply without their notice. What should we do?
I think writ would be the best remedy for you to approach the High Court. Writ petition under Article 226, 227. You can go and ask for the refund of that money which has been forcefully recovered from you. I think that would also expedite the issuance of show cause notice, if at all. In case they don't have the material, they will have to simply refund this money.
Atul sir, now I would request you to please ask your question. Could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you, Neha. I think I am already unmuted. Am I not?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sandeep ji, good evening. My compliments for such a great deliberation.
Thank you, Atul ji. Thank you so much, sir. I'm really.
Sir, I have only two questions. Number one, if the assessee or the taxpayer doesn't have a copy of the reasons, on what ground can he challenge it in the court of law that the reasons are wrong?
Atul ji, I've already shared it with you that you cannot ask for the copy of reasons to believe which are there for issuance of authorization of search. But in case you strongly believe from the circumstances that they don't have the reasons to believe, you can approach the High Court, and High Court can summon the record and see for themselves whether the reasons to believe are not there or not. I see, in case they are coming to you, they have not even searched anything, they have not found anything which has been secreted in your premises, then I'm sure that they will not be having the proper authorization for search and there will be no reasons to believe. If they come and simply say that your ITC is wrong, that will not constitute the reasons to believe and for the purpose of section 67(2). So depending upon the circumstances, you can always gauge whether the reasons to believe were there or not.
That means this again will have to be very carefully guessed and estimated. Absolutely. And then go to the court.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. You have to be very sure about at least your own facts.
Okay. Secondly, without adjudication of a demand,
right,
they cannot arrest you. Is that right?
This is my take on it, sir.
And on the other hand, Arunesh also said that certain guidelines have to be followed.
Yes, sir.
Then how, on the other hand, you say that the GST officer can arrest you? They cannot arrest you if these two conditions are not met.
Of course, sir. When I say that they can arrest you, these conditions will come as a rider for that. The riders are always there, sir.
Yeah. So that means they cannot just walk into your premises and say, okay, you are under arrest.
Yes, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So generally they are doing it in few cases. They have just walked into
day in, day out. Day in, day out, they are doing.
Right. So what is the immediate remedy at that time?
Sir, your immediate remedy is to approach. Wherever they have taken you, you have to apprise the court about your rights. Like I've shared one experience with you that where we had strongly objected to the grant of judicial remand itself, and the judicial magistrate had to release that person because they were not. When
Arunesh Kumar said that the officer will be held for contempt of court,
yes,
then why couldn't they still be allowed to arrest? Can there not circular not be sent by the commissionerate that no arrest should be made in view of Arunesh Kumar?
Atulji, unfortunately, these circulars are not issued simply for the reason that these permissions for arrest always flow from the top.
Okay.
Themselves, I will not blame the officers who are actually arresting the persons. I will be blaming the person who are authorizing the arrest of such people. And those are on the top. Yes, in case we all raise hue and cry, like we did in the case of forceful recovery after that, me associates. Yes, the CBIC might have to come out with certain guidelines. They have issued the guidelines for arrest also, but they have simply ignored these Arunesh Kumar and other things.
Should we not use our forum of Institute of Chartered Accountants or Bar Council?
Why not?
So, Gaurav, please use your good office and have it sent to the commissionerate that these arrests should not be done unless the riders are met with.
Yes.
You see, because Randeep ji, I am facing a lot of problems. I can't name those clients, but we are facing a lot of, they are being threatened in and out. In one case I told the officer कि भैया तुम करके देखो, you will lose your job. But वो फिर भी वो जो असेसी घर पे जाते हैं ना, the taxpayer is so scared, वो कहते हैं नहीं इसको खत्म कराओ, जिसको खत्म कराओ.
ऐसे होता ही। अतुल जी, प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आती है कि जैसे अभी आपने मेरे को कहा कि कंटेम्प्ट है अगर ऑफिसर नहीं करता है, तो मतलब ऑफिसर उसको वायलेट करता है रमेश कुमार का, बट माय क्लाइंट इज नॉट रेडी टू फाइल द कंटेम्प्ट पिटीशन इन द हाई कोर्ट. ही डजंट वांट टू बाय एनिमिटी विद दोस ऑफिसर, बिकॉज वो कहते हैं ना नदी में रह रहे तो
मगरमच्छ से बैर नहीं करना चाहिए. बात तो
हमारा
ठीक है आपकी.
कहाँ आती है अतुल जी? हमारा घर भी साफ नहीं है, हम भी शीशे के घर में रह रहे हैं ना. प्रॉब्लम
That's the problem. The client doesn't want to take any drastic action because he knows को कल को उसी के ऊपर आनी है बात ये.
Exactly सर. ऑफिसर्स को तो somehow कहीं ना कहीं प्रोटेक्शन मिलती है सर.
मिलती है, बिल्कुल मिलती है. So thank you very much संदीप जी. Thank you.
एक चीज और आपसे शेयर करूंगा. जब वो अरेस्ट करते हैं वो गलत नहीं करते हैं, उस पावर को यूज करते हैं तो उसकी आड़ में वो दूसरे गलत काम बहुत करते हैं.
Right. That's the issue.
That's the issue.
Because in one case they said कि जब नहीं अरेस्ट करते कुछ ले दिलाते, मैंने कहा भैया within the law ही करोगे ना फिर भी. But they tell you anyways. Let's not get into that. Thank you संदीप जी. Thank you.
So नेहा मैम, एक और क्वेश्चन है हमारा Q&A में. That is relevant, I guess. Can the search be done at CA premises if the books of accounts are maintained at their premises?
Well, in case the account books are kept in with the chartered accountant in the normal course of professional work, then it cannot be. You know, the term used is that the books of accounts or the things or the documents are secreted at any place. In case it is an open secret or it is openly known to everybody that the books have been kept at chartered accountant's place, then yes, section 67(2) is not protected in such a scenario. Because अगर आपकी books गई हैं audit करने के लिए या आपकी books गई हैं वहाँ पर for the purpose of preparing your final accounts, then yes, 67(2) is not protected in such a case, and one can object to it on the spot itself.
All right. Great. So I think we have answered all the relevant questions. So Neha ma'am, we can proceed further.
शेफी जी, संदीप जी का एक सवाल है यहाँ पे. One of my client has filed his GSTR 3B with turnover and output tax of Feb and March cumulatively in March month wrongly. He has filed his Feb month return directly. How to reclaim the excess tax paid of Feb month again paid in March?
I think Sandeep ji, you would be more equipped to deal with such a situation than me, because I don't even know how to file the return of 3B.
Sir, ये compliance question है. हम लोग litigation पे बात कर रहे हैं.
Iski, I think according to my limited knowledge which I have, I think you can always correct this in the subsequent month.
Yes, sir, it can be corrected. Rather, now there is an additional column in 3B nowadays. It can be rectified and corrected anytime, sir. Either they are now accepting the minus figure also.
Sir, actually, तो मेरी तो खुद की रिटर्न भी है, वो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट भरते हैं, so I don't know how to file the return.
The chartered accountant smart है ना?
हाँ, बिल्कुल है sir.
Yes,
So
sir,
I am qualified as a chartered accountant, but I don't know how to work like a chartered accountant.
संदीप जी, ये जो 4 सर्कुलर आए हैं जनवरी में, सर्कुलर नंबर 1 से 7, जिनकी 30 जून लास्ट डेट है, it is out of the context now, but do you think the department is showing some sympathy toward the defaulters or genuine defaulters, I would rather say? Sir,
you are talking about that circular where the date has been extended for the registration, revival of registration.
Revocation, sir.
Yeah. 1/23 and 2/23 सारे जो है आए हैं ना?
Revocation and capping on penalty.
I think that is solving more. That is solving the problems for the buyers and the sellers rather than solving the problems for those people.
Right.
I think that is yielding to the benefit of the buyers and sellers. That is important. क्योंकि वो रजिस्ट्रेशन जिन लोगों ने 2-2 साल से कैंसिल करवा रखी थी, उन्होंने नहीं भरा था, उसकी प्रॉब्लम्स बायर्स को ज्यादा आ रही थी, इसी वजह से वो रिवाइवल की तरफ जा रहे हैं. I think उसमें कुछ गलत नहीं है, वो डिफॉल्टर वाली बात नहीं. You can always impose fee, but how can you keep somebody out of business?
Right.
That one of the cases I only dealt in the court, I asked a question from myself that suppose a person has granted has given a premises on lease for which he is liable to pay the GST, right? And उसके बाद आपने उसको लाइसेंस ने रिटर्न नहीं भरी तो उसका लाइसेंस कैंसिल कर दिया, आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल कर दी. बट वो प्रॉपर्टी तो लीज पर अभी भी दी हुई है, जीएसटी तो अभी भी आ रहा है. यू आर ट्राइंग टू कीप हिम आउट ऑफ द एम्बिट ऑफ जीएसटी. व्हाट इज द फन ऑफ दैट? रादर द डिपार्टमेंट शुड बी वेरी काइंड. आपने जब भी रिटर्न भर के आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन आपका रिस्टोर करवाना करवा लीजिए. व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम? ही इज कमिंग बैक इनटू द जीएसटी फोल्ड इटसेल्फ. इट डजंट हार्म एनीबॉडी एट द एंड ऑफ द डे.
I think the government is waking up to these problems with genuine problems. और
Yes.
कभी-कभी तो somebody was traveling, उसके वजह से नहीं हुआ. But
Uh-huh.
Gauraji, when are we taking the assessment part? Because there are very relevant question now. And then till 30th June, we will have a lot of.
I think, sir, next
requirements.
session, tomorrow's session will cover that.
We'll
So
cover
the
that.
assessments we have already covered in the last session. You can look at our
Mhm.
YouTube video. Today we have covered inspection, search and seizure. And tomorrow we are covering some another topic. Assessment has already been done. I'll share the YouTube video with you.
Please do that.
Yes.
Because in view
Sir,
of the-
Rana ji is asking, what if CA is preparing the books?
Well, if the CA is preparing the books, there is no harm in that, so long as it is based upon the information or the reports which are sent to him. He should not be creating the figures on his own. That's the only caveat which I would be saying he should be aware of. Other than that, there should not be any problem, so long as he's preparing the reports based upon the raw information which is sent to him by the client.
Bhavna ji, do you still have your question? I see your hand is raised.
Yes, madam, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, if after inspection we are forced to submit any replies without receiving any notice from GST department, should we do that?
Bhavna, you need not file any reply at all. What would you reply
But they
to?
are forcing us to reply. They are regularly calling us and forcing us to submit the reply.
To what you would be replying in case there is no question?
The same question I have asked to them. What should I reply?
उन्होंने आपसे पूछ क्या रहे हैं, मतलब वर्बली पूछ रहे हैं आपको?
इनका पहले क्वेश्चन था.
At the time of inspection, let me clear, sir. At the time of inspection, they found that there was some mistake in our GSTN 9. In GSTN 9 of 1718, in table 8, the figure was negative of 18 lakh CGST and 18 lakh SGST. But there was some clerical mistake. So we refused to file DRC 03. But they forced to file. तो हम लोगों ने सर फाइल नहीं किया. But after that, they are regularly following us. By auditing our refunds, HSN issues, and all that, and they are forcing us to submit reply.
Bhavna ji, वो आपको I don't think you have to file any reply. वो तो arm twisting action की.
तो सर arm twisting ही हो रहा है, but मैं उनको regularly बोल रही हूँ, सर आप मुझे एक notice issue कर दो, तो वो हमें इस तरह से बोलते हैं, मैडम जब हम notice issue करेंगे तो फिर आपको सब cover करेंगे हम.
कोई बात नहीं, हम देख लेंगे. उनको बोलो जी कोई बात नहीं है, आपने you go by the law, we will also go by the law. बिकॉज आप अपनी तरफ से रिप्लाई फाइल करते हो, वो आपको प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर सकता है.
एक्चुअली यही बात है कि हम रिप्लाई दे नहीं रहे हैं, क्योंकि किस कंटेक्स्ट में वो हमसे रिप्लाई चाह रहे हैं और हम कुछ एक्स्ट्रा उन्हें बता दें तो वो भी फायदा नहीं है.
मैम, यू आर ऑन एब्सोल्युटली राइट ट्रैक. डोंट फाइल द रिप्लाई.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And in case, ma'am, if still the people don't stop harassing you, go for the CP-gram. That will quite help you out.
Okay.
CP-gram में भी क्या लिखोगे? There is no evidence.
यही कि वो
एविडेंस तो
चल रहे हैं.
सर एविडेंस में इंस्पेक्शन, उनका इंस्पेक्शन का नोटिस है मेरे पास, जो INC 01671 के अंदर वो आए थे यहाँ करने. उसके बाद रेगुलरली वो व्हाट्सएप कॉल्स करते हैं. मैंने उन्हें कुछ डाटा भी शेयर किया है व्हाट्सएप पे. आई हैव सम ऑफ द प्रूफ्स.
So that will quite.
Those are very specific instances which may not be relevant for all the people. We should be taking up the general questions.
No comments in those.
One more question from Vinay Gupta. His hand is raised. So
Yes. I'll just allow him to talk. Have you?
right.
हेलो
विनय जी प्लीज बताइए.
गुड इवनिंग सर.
गुड इवनिंग जी.
सर एक्चुअली हमारे केस में क्या हुआ कि जीएसटी ऑफिसर आया है प्रेमाइस पे. ठीक है, तो बिल्डर का केस है हमारा. उसमें उनका क्या था कि उन्होंने जून 2021 में अपना पोजीशन दे दिया. तो पोजीशन के बाद उनका टैक्स फ्री हो गया सारा.
क्या दे दिया जून 2021 में?
उन्होंने से पोजीशन दे दिया, अपना ओसी ले लिया बिल्डरिंग का.
ओके ठीक है, ऑल राइट.
तो उसके बाद वो टैक्स फ्री आइटम हो गया अपना, तो टैक्स नहीं लगता उसके ऊपर जीएसटी में.
ठीक है.
अब जिस एडवोकेट ने उनकी जीएसटी रिटर्न फाइल की ना, उसने क्या करा कि उसने 3B में जो भी इनपुट आया उनका वो उसने क्लेम करता गया 3B के अंदर। और हमने क्या किया कि हमने ऑडिटर होते हुए हमने बुक्स के अंदर उसको रिवर्स करते गए, मतलब उसको हमने खर्चे में डालते गए। तो
खर्चे में
हमारी बुक्स में तो मतलब हमारी बुक्स में तो वो जीएसटी आईटी से रहा नहीं, जबकि वो 3B में खड़ा रहा उनका।
ऑल राइट।
अब क्या हुआ कि जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट वाले आए पिछले 15 दिन के अंदर, तो वो आए और उन्होंने पूरा की पूरा 3B में जितना भी हमारा आउटपुट था, सॉरी इनपुट था, वो उन्होंने सारा रिवर्स करवाया हमारे से वहीं पे बैठ के कि सर आपको सारा।
आपको उस आईटीसी का करना क्या है जब एग्जम्प्टी हो गया आप?
सर वो आगे तो उन्होंने सारा आईटीसी रिवर्स कराया हमारे से। उसके बाद वो ये कह रहे हैं कि सर अब आपके ऊपर, आपको इसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट भी देना और पेनल्टी भी देनी है, क्योंकि आपने आईटीसी रिवर्स नहीं किया। पहला तो उनका ये था। और
सर
दूसरा,
जी
हाँ जी
बोलिए।
सर,
मैं
दूसरा,
चलो आप बोलिए कंप्लीट करिए।
हाँ दूसरा सर ये है कि हमने पोजीशन के बाद भी कुछ सर्विसेज ऐसी दी हैं जो हमारी टैक्सेबल थी, लाइक मेंटेनेंस चार्ज और आपका इसमें मीटर के चार्जेस ऐसे करके कुछ चार्जेस थे,
वाटर चार्जेस वगैरह होंगे आपके।
हाँ जी, इस तरह से। तो उनका जो पहला तो ये था कि वो इंटरेस्ट और पेनल्टी डिमांड कर रहे हैं, वो क्या सही है क्या? दूसरा ये कि जो उन्होंने पूरा हमारा जीरो कर दिया, वो क्या सही है क्या?
विनय जी, इसको ना वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द प्रॉब्लम। जो आपके पास आईटीसी प्रायर टू दी ओसी है,
हाँ
वो सारे का सारा उस दिन आपको ओसी मिल गया, उस दिन आपको रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा, सो फार एज दैट रिलेट्स टू द कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ योर बिल्डिंग।
जी सर, ठीक है।
राइट, वो रूल 42 में भी क्लियरली प्रोवाइडेड है। ओके,
हाँ जी, हाँ
उसके बाद में आप अगर उसको रिवर्स उस दिन करते हो या आज रिवर्स करते हो, आपके ऊपर टैक्स की आउटफ्लो तो कोई है ही नहीं है किसी भी तरीके से।
नहीं है सर।
Question of interest and penalty would not arise in such a case. You can simply refuse that कि हम नहीं कर रहे हैं, आपको जो करना है कर दीजिए, you issue me the notice. Secondly, जो आपको कह रहे हैं कि आपकी उसके बाद लाइबिलिटी बनती है मेंटेनेंस चार्जेस या कुछ भी है, अगर आपने उस मेंटेनेंस चार्जेस में या किसी भी के ऊपर जीएसटी बनता था और आपने उसमें इस वाले आईटीसी को यूज करा है, for that amount you are definitely liable to pay the interest. If not penalty, at least you are liable to pay the interest. There is no question about it. And in case you have not utilized that ITC for this purpose, for the maintenance charges, GST, then there is no question of any interest and liability, interest and penalty even for that.
ओके, तो अगर हमने यूज किया है तब जाके हमें इंटरेस्ट पेनल्टी देना पड़ेगा सर?
Absolutely, sir. वो तो लिखा ही हुआ है सेक्शन 50 में अब तो, यूज claimed and availed and utilized, sorry, availed and utilized, but clearly है section 50 में।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू
जी
सर। आई थिंक सारे क्वेश्चंस आंसर हो गए हैं। Q&A में एक विनोद जी का क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है, ये लास्ट ले रहे हैं सर, इसके बाद क्लोज करेंगे। For payment not made within 180 days, clause under section 16(2) for ITC though availed but not utilized, is interest still leviable under section 51 or 53 if not reversed within 180 days?
For payment not made within 180 days, clause under section 60 for ITC through availed but not utilized. This you are talking about where the payment has been made later than 180 days. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Seems to be.
Right,
In
sir.
case-
Right, sir.
हाँ जी।
In that case, for the ITC though availed but not.
अगर उन्होंने यूटिलाइज नहीं किया है तो आई थिंक इट डोंट बी।
In case you utilize the ITC, फिर तो उसके ऊपर बनेगा नहीं, वही सेक्शन 50 सब में आ
हाँ जी,
जाएगा।
हाँ जी, यूटिलाइज नहीं किया है तो नहीं बनेगा सर।
एक मक्कड़ साहब का नीचे क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है। The search was conducted under section 67 wherein the assessee had wrong back. मक्कड़ साहब, आप उस केस में क्लासिफिकेशन डिस्प्यूट है तो इंटरेस्ट तो आपको इन एनी केस 73 हो या 74 हो, दोनों में ही पे करना है। बट इट अपीयर्स इन योर केस the tax, this issue with regard to classification. In that scenario, you can always claim that it should be the proceeding should be under section 74 and not under section 73. So that's a contestable issue, debatable issue.
सर और क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं। अल्ताफ जी पूछ रहे हैं whether they can verify cash counter and cash in client premises.
सर वो अल्ताफ जी प्रैक्टिकली तो जब वो आगे कुछ भी वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं, ये जो सकने वाली बात है हम पहले भी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, तो एक बार आगे तो वेरीफाई सब कुछ ही कर सकते हैं। और उसके बाद यस इट्स रेलेवेंट प्रोसीडिंग्स फॉर रेलेवेंट एविडेंस फॉर कंडक्ट ऑफ फ्यूचर प्रोसीडिंग्स, सो दे कैन डू इट।
Anil ji is asking whether 180 days period is applicable for import payment.
Well, 180 days no, I don't think.
Import, it can't be enforced in import. That is
Can't
for
be
the
enforced in import also, and section 16(2) deals with the ITC, which is relatable on the purchases, not on import. You are always paying the IGST, and that's under the Customs Act. That's not relatable to tax invoices. That's under a different subsection at all.
Ayushi, that's it, sir, for today. All the questions are done. I hope we have done justice to our participants. Ayushi ji, there is no PPT. He was reading from Bear Act. And I have already shared the link of yesterday's video in the chat box for everyone. Please go through the YouTube link if it is required and you missed yesterday's session on assessment. I would
So
now
we have
request, Shafi ji,
hands
do you
are
want to say
raised.
something?
No, we have 2 hands raised from the panelist.
It's always with Sandeep sir. Close नहीं करने देते.
So,
Sir, last time भी ऐसा ही हुआ था.
बोलिए सर, बोलिए, हम भी बिल्कुल जाएंगे।
big demand, sir, big demand.
Sandeep sir, if you have time, we can take up questions.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
विशाल जी को ले लें,
Alright.
काफी देर से इनका
Right.
सही listening.
Actually, अभी IPL शुरू होने में थोड़ा टाइम है, तो people are
That will be 7:30.
Vishal ji, please ask your question.
Hi, sir. Good evening, Sandeep, sir.
Good evening, sir. Vishal ji.
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening all the questions very patiently. Sir, एक क्वेश्चन है मेरा आपसे.
जी
अभी
बोलिए।
जो रिसेंटली जो जीएसटी डिपार्टमेंट वाली जो फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन की जो ड्राइव अभी इनकी 2 months की अभी चला रहे हैं कि दे विल गो इन द जीएसटी इन द प्रिंसिपल प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस एंड दे विल वेरीफाई what all things they will verify, whether they can inspect the books of accounts or any other records. मतलब what is उनका स्कोप क्या होगा to check and verify what all they
Sir, I think
power to check.
I think इसके ऊपर हम काफी डिस्कशन हो चुकी है हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप्स के ऊपर भी और बड़ी जगह पर, बड़े फोरम्स के ऊपर। सर ये कुछ नहीं है, ये सारी जो एक्सरसाइज है आपको भी पता है क्यों हो रही है और इसका रिजल्ट क्या होने वाला है। बट yes, I take the positives out of it, that once the inspection has been carried out and still they have not cancelled the registration certificate of person who they claim to be bogus later on, the person who has bought the goods from those persons, they cannot say that the person, the seller was non-existent or something of that sort. But yes, in case they find that the person was non-existent, that will be closed on from that day. आप जो कह रहे हो रिकॉर्ड चेक करने और करने, that is not within their scope at all. This is only for the purpose of finding out whether that person is doing the business or existing over there or not. That's it. Just to remove the fake registered dealers who are not conducting the business at all. I think that's the idea.
So,
And
sir, okay. So if officer asks for any books of accounts or records, so we can advise our client to simply deny. To
deny karna, Vishal ji, you need to ask the question before we deliberate upon this. You tell me, अगर कोई officer आपके पास आता है and you say that I am doing the business in a proper way, अगर वो books मांगता है तो आपको books देने में क्या problem है उसमें, ये बताइए पहले मेरे को। ठीक है। दूसरी बात ये, अगर आप कहते हो कि हाँ वो बुक्स में से कुछ गलती निकाल सकता है, देन यू कैन ऑलवेज से कि जी आप कौन से सेक्शन में ले रहे हो, मेरे को रिसीट दे दीजिए बुक्स की, आप ले जाइए। एनीवेज अदरवाइज भी ऑल्सो सेक्शन 71 में आपसे बुक्स कभी भी कॉल कर ही सकता है।
राइट। ठीक है सर, ठीक है, गॉट इट। थैंक यू
जी।
अभी आई थिंक हो गया है सबके हैंड रेज, देयर आर नो हैंड रेज एनीमोर। Gaurav sir, I would request you to please give concluding remarks and give vote of thanks for Sandeep ji.
It's an absolute pleasure, Sandeep sir. I'm posing a vote of thanks for the second time. I remember precisely for the first time the session was overrun by around 45 minutes, and after your sessions, my seniors from few of the seniors from Amritsar, they started calling me to get your number and to get the PPT. I rather at that time also requested them that there is no PPT. still the people want you to listen for the unlimited time. Sir, see the chat box once, sir. You are getting enormous response. And my heartiest thanks to you for sparing your valuable time. जब भी आपका sir session रहता है, it's always humongous among the people who attends all these things. My thanks to Voka for arranging such a wonderful seminar, and thanks to Ashni ji, Piyush Bansal ji, जो ये सारा ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग करके आप जैसे बंदों को सर जोड़ते हैं आप फॉर द जनरल बेनिफिट ऑफ पब्लिक एट लार्ज. देखो सर प्लेटफॉर्म की एडवांटेज देखिए, नो CPRs, नो चार्जेस, स्टिल पीपल आर कनेक्टेड विद अस स्टार्टिंग from the starting point till end. At any point of time it was 252 people when you started the Bear Act deliberation, sir. Best thing is this, you are still clearing all the doubts whether related or not. My bundle of thanks to you, sir, for sparing your valuable time. सर प्लीज आते रहिए. अभी जैसे जैसे डिपार्टमेंट की ड्राइव चल रही है, आई थिंक वो का शुड ऑर्गेनाइज. नेहा जी, माय रिक्वेस्ट टू यू, हमें भी अपनी ड्राइव चलानी चाहिए उनके साथ to get the people aware about their rights. Sir, the key point.
There is a webinar in pipeline, sir. There is a webinar in pipeline for that. Yes.
The key thing is, sir, जो आपने बात आज कही, the golden words being told by you is where comes the responsibility also with the power. So I think the department needs to understand the vulnerability of the genuine clients also, sir. सर yes. एक हमारे केस में, मतलब आप जैसे IGST CGST की बात कर रहे थे विजय सर, हमारे एक स्क्रैप के डीलर के केस में IGST वाले ने भी पेनल्टी लगाई, CGST वाले ने उसमें CGST वाले ने भी पेनल्टी लगाई, SGST वाले ने भी पेनल्टी लगाई ऑन द सेम वॉइस. तो स्टिल द मतलब the things are so unclear to every person relating to GST, whether the learners, whether the business people, and whether it may be the professionals. So many thanks to you, sir.
गौरव जी, आपको ना इसमें एक एनेक्डोट बता रहा हूँ. जो अभी आपने बोली कि GST CGST वाले ने भी लगाई, SGST वाले भी नहीं लगाई. In the good old times, जब VAT applicable.
That is why I ask you, sir, कि अगर उसमें on protest अगर लिख के पे किया जाए तो that will serve us for the coming time or not.
Definitely. तो मैं आपको एक एनेक्डोट बता रहा हूँ कि एक VAT के टाइम पर हम लोगों ने एक केस फाइल करा कि एक ऑफिसर हमें नोटिस इशू कर रहा है, जबकि हमारी असेसमेंट दूसरे ऑफिसर ने ऑलरेडी फ्रेम कर रखी है. तो ही डज नॉट हैव द जुरिस्डिक्शन टू फ्रेम द असेसमेंट अगेन. तो जब हम हाई कोर्ट में उसमें अप्रोच करा, ऑफ कोर्स द हाई कोर्ट हैड इशूड द नोटिस एंड ग्रांटेड अस द स्टे. तो जज हैड रिमार्क्ड कि गोयल साहब, वो तो झगड़ा सिर्फ ये है कि वो दुकान का जो सौदा वो मेरे से लेके जाओ, आप उससे क्यों ले गए. So that's a real thing. And that's a practical view of it.
Practical view, yeah, sir. So thanks a lot, sir, for sparing your valuable time. और please request है sir, आपको एक ऐसा system बना लें कि once a quarter, twice a quarter, आप please थोड़ा सा time निकाल के किसी भी topic पे जो आपको suitable लगे, please be with us, sir, on this platform. Thank you so much.
So much, Gaurav ji, for all the nice words. ये पीयूष जी की सर, जब भी हुक्म होगा हम यहाँ पर आपके सामने हाजिर हो जाएंगे, और जो आप कहोगे हम उसके ऊपर सर आपसे डिस्कस करेंगे. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ऑल द काइंड वर्ड्स व्हिच यू हैव स्पोकन. ऑफ कोर्स थैंक्स टू नेहा जी एंड शैफी जी फॉर कंडक्टिंग दिस सेशन इन सच अ.
थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू.
एडमिन साहब भी आ गए हैं.
Thank you, Gaurav sir. I would like to acknowledge all our panelists and all our participants. Piyush sir is our speaker for tomorrow. He is taking up GST audit. We all will meet you at 5 p.m. We have Ashwani sir also, who has rejoined us. We had Puneet, we had Atul ji, we had a lot of our regular and very close members who keep joining us for every webinars. Yes.
He always contributes, whether at the start or at the end.
Yes.
Thanks to you, sir, also.
Ashwani sir, would you like to give any remarks?
नहीं वैसे मैं तो चलो गाड़ी में हूँ. थैंक यू वेरी मच. आज बड़ा अच्छा, मैंने तो स्टार्टिंग में सुना था संदीप जी का, एज ऑलवेज इट वाज अ वेरी गुड एंड वंडरफुल सेशन.
जी, गाड़ी में नेटवर्क इशू.
आई होप सो एवरीवन हैज लर्नड अ लॉट फ्रॉम संदीप.
राइट.
Absolutely, sir. अब किसी का क्वेश्चन रह गया तो we'll take it up tomorrow. Thank you so much. Shafi, would you like to thank all the participants and close for the day?
Yeah, right. So thank you, Neha ma'am, for organizing such a great session, and thank you, Sandeep sir, again for your sea of wisdom and we would like to see you again super soon.
My pleasure.
Right?
Yes.
So thank you all the participants for joining in big numbers. So please do join tomorrow as well for the certificates to claim. Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
See you
Sandeep.
all at
Thank you.
5.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sandeep
sir.
ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. See you, Piyush sir, tomorrow for your deliberation. Thank you, participants.
Sure, thank you.
Head office, please close the session. Thank you.